Even with consolidation of new energy sources, oil still holds a supreme and indisputable importance. It is 1/3 of the world energy matrix. The economic role of this fossil resource is undeniable. In this century, oil and OPEC still has protagonism. We come from a long century of ups and downs in prices because of offer and supply, because of the contraction of economic activity. Countries that have not recovered their growth after a strong geopolitical regional struggle, a historic agreement was reached, and with speculation in the middle, a progressive recovery of international price began. Now new threats are upon that balance. Prices have lost 30% in the last 2 months. What has been determining and why? It's not only about numbers. Every actor has a geopolitical power quota in the international arena. Therefore, international peace is also at stake. Oil world stability thermometer is our critical move today. Let's look at the last facts and actions. Last week, OPEC Plus met in Vienna to examine the situation of the oil market, that if it reaches $100 per barrel and 50% down, the members agreed on some variants. Russia will cut 228,000 barrels per day. Iran and Venezuela were accepted because of their situation. The first, as we all know, is recovering the time lost because of the punishment against its oil activities that were never war-like. And the second, it has a considerable drop in its production that has proposed to regain in these months. Based on the current fundamentals and the consensus of a growing unbalance in 2019, the conference decided to adjust OPEC's general production to 6.8 million barrels per day since January 2019 for 6 months, and having reviewed in April.
Los países de la OPEP y los
OPEC
países que no
countries
forman
and the
parte de
countries
la
that are
OPEP
not
reducirán en
OPEC
torno a
members will
1.2 millones
reduce
de
around
barriles de petróleo
1.2
diarios a
million
partir
barrels
de
of
enero de
oil
2019
per day
en
as
comparación a
of
octubre de
January
2018.
2019 as
Nuestro
compared
nivel
to
de producción en
October
octubre de este año fue
2018.
de
In
alrededor de
October,
11.4
the
millones de
production
barriles
was
por día. Según el
11.4
acuerdo
million
actual
barrels
que
per
ya he
day.
escuchado, la
According to
Federación Rusa
the
reducirá un 2%
current
a partir de
agreement,
ese
Russian
nivel, que equivale a
Federation
alrededor de
will go
228
down
mil barriles
1.2
diarios.
barrels.
Este descenso será lo más rápido posible,
This would be
al igual que
the
hace 2
quick
años,
drop
teniendo en
as
cuenta nuestras circunstancias
2 years
tecnológicas y
ago,
climáticas.
considering
Esto creo que
climatic
tomará
and
varios meses.
economic situation. I think this will take several months.
Es obvio que debemos
It is
cooperar,
obvious that we must
cooperaremos.
cooperate,
El
and we
formato
will.
OPEC Plus demostró ser
OPEC
efectivo. Podemos
Plus
verlo en la
format
situación del
proved
mercado.
to be
Usted
effective. We can
conoce la
see it in
opinión
the
de
market
expertos,
situation.
incluidos los rusos.
You
Un ligero
know
repunte en el
experts'
precio y el
opinion,
descenso
including
es posible. Creo que el
Russians.
precio de
I
hoy no
think
es
that
estable,
today's
podría
price is
aumentar.
not
Como
stable.
saben,
It could
está
increase.
relacionado con varios
As you know,
factores.
it
Por
has
cierto,
to
lo
do with
discutimos
several
con el
factors,
Trump
and
en
we
París. Al
discussed
menos
this
tocamos
with
ese tema.
President
Todo
Trump
está
in
unido.
Paris.
Necesitamos un
Everything
precio
is
óptimo
united.
tanto
We
para
need
los productores
we
como
need
para
an
los
optimal
consumidores. El
price
precio
both
que
for
tenemos
producers
ahora
and
y el que
consumers.
hemos visto
Our current
recientemente es
price
de
and
alrededor de
the one we
$70
just saw is around
estadounidenses. Es
$70
absolutamente bueno para
US,
nosotros,
which is
teniendo en
good for
cuenta que nuestro
us,
presupuesto
considering
de
that our
gastos se
budget of
formó asumiendo el
expenses
precio de
was
$40
formed
por
assuming
barril.
$40 per barrel.
Así las cosas. Nuestra casa informativa Telesur reseña
Telesur
Venezuela asumirá presidencia de la
published
OPEP
an
en enero de
article,
2019.
Venezuela will
Eso es muy
resume the
importante.
OPEC presidency
Tras la
in
11ª
2019
reunión del Comité
after the
Ministerial de
11th
Monitoreo Conjunto de la
meeting
Fórmula
of
que
OPEC
se desarrollaba
Plus
la semana pasada,
held
el
last
día
week.
martes, el ministro
On
venezolano
Tuesday,
de Petróleo y
Venezuelan
presidente
Minister
del
of Oil,
estatal
President
PDVSA,
of
Manuel
PDVSA, Manuel
Fernández,
Quevedo
confirmaba esta
Fernández,
noticia
confirmed
con la que
this
titulaba nuestro
news
portal.
of our portal.
Venezuela asumirá
Venezuela
este cargo,
will
cuya duración
assume
es
this
anual, el 1 de
position
enero próximo.
on
Su
January
homólogo de
1st,
Argelia,
and
Mustafa
his peer of Argelia, will be as a deputy in the same period. The Venezuelan government will continue designing strategies aimed to stabilize prices, which is a core point at this time. Another priority topic in the Venezuelan agenda with international repercussion, of course, because it will assume this high position, is make possible negotiations with cryptocurrency in order to avoid reaction of the United States. And Petro, the Venezuelan cryptocurrency, will have a role there. I will now go to another web page.
Se llama La montaña rusa del precio del petróleo tiene
the price of oil has in shock the global economy.
Dice así,
written by Diego Herranz. The control of oil prices seem to be unstable in the hands of Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Vladimir Putin, and Trump. It will be them who determine its quote in 2019, says the author, that command the supply, and they will decide if OPEC sets a deficit or not. If Riyadh agrees with Kremlin on the price, U.S. oil companies, Western oil fields in Texas will interrupt their production with the Gulf oil and will supply the critical needs of the United States. An interruption of oil purchases in the United States will depress prices once again. The industry of Texan oil will be able to produce within 1 year, 6 months before the foreseen, an amount of crude similar to what Nigeria can pump without security and maximum performance. 12 million barrels per day. The White House has the decision of sanctions against Iran. I remember this is in rebellion.org, and it's called The Price of Unstable Price of Oil Has the Global Economy in shock. The oil barrel, not everything is numbers, supply, demand. What are the geopolitical factors that interfere the behavioral and volatility of oil prices? After this pause, we will develop our topic in this direction.
Petróleo.
Oil World stability thermometers are a critical move today. We want to add what at the beginning of this year the investigation webpage Misión Verdad reported. China and Russia aim to the head of the petrodollar. The price of oil is an extortion to compel changing real work for a currency that only costs the United States the ink and the paper of the bill. And since the digital currency, not even that, the new emission of currency in the United States is very dark, where a private entity, the Federal Reserve, receives a remittance from Treasury and creates the amount of money requested. We must say that this amount will never be paid, and therefore the creation of dollar creates debt, and this is only a small part of the irregularities of the U.S. hegemony. The equation of oil prices not only resolved with math. The increase of supply, of course, influences the prices. Nevertheless, there are other factors like geoeconomy. In the absence of a technological revolution that is quick and spectacular, consumption of fossil fuels will change the way of life and concept of the well-being. AIE, formed by 26 countries, says that oil will still be the main resource by 2030. So the purchase of oil will increase from 77 million barrels per day and 121 million calculated for 2030. We are living a radical translation of the energy model, and all the actors involved in this great game move strategically from the New World for Middle East and the Bolivarian project for South-South and multipolar, without forgetting Europe and their relations with Russia and Chinese and Indian diplomacy. All the world diplomacy is full of concern within the era of fossil fuels, which is at the center of debates. In addition to this, we must consider that the geopolitical value of oil is such that the prices or quotes move up and down depending on key factors that do not have to do exclusively with offer and supply. The political game is at the core, and the great capitals is determined. For example, the U.S. Congress considers that 30% of the oil price is due to speculation of investment funds and great banks, and Goldman Sachs considers that the impact of this phenomenon is 40% of the price. Other ingredients that must be included are Saudi Arabia's shares in the Middle East, the attempts to punish Russia, the Syrian war that is said to be at portals of finishing, and intergovernmental alliances. A very high percentage of oil traded in the world comes from OPEC. Their influence in history in fixing prices in the international market. It is some kind of a central bank of the oil market. Let's see the map of its history and strategic goals. OPEC was founded in a conference in Baghdad, in Iraq in 1960 by 5 of its current members: Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Venezuela, and Iran. Today, it is 15 states: Angola, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Ecuador, United Arab Emirates, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, Qatar, Gabon, Congo, and Angola. The last has the lowest production, just announced its withdrawal for January 2019 because it says it's a very small player and will devote its production to gas. Non-OPEC members also participate, like Azerbaijan, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, Russia, Sudan, and South Sudan. Their purpose is to unify and coordinate oil policies to defend its interests at producing nations and guarantee convenient prices by regulating production levels, for example, seek an efficient oil provision and the fair play of capital investments. Additional information controlled 2/3 of global crude oil sales. In 1985, headquartered operated out of Vienna, Austria. It's recognized by the United Nations since November 6, 1962. In 2016, they signed an agreement to lower oil production.
del sector petrolero adquirieron voz y voto a la hora de fijar precios del crudo de petróleo en el mercado mundial. En noviembre de 2016 firmó junto a importantes productores de crudo no adscritos a la organización como Rusia un acuerdo que fijó cuotas más bajas de producción en aras de lograr precios más altos después de un ciclo prolongado de bajas cotizaciones provocado por distintos factores. Para darnos su visión de los
to give us his opinion of facts and help us, we have from Venezuela Miguel Jaimes, Master in Political Science, expert in geopolitics, and has a degree in this matter. Thank you for being with us, Miguel. Welcome to our program. The volatile behavior of oil, as we have said, includes other factors, more geopolitical factors. What are, in this new chapter of the oil battle, these factors? Oil is the main condition to establish the rules of the game in the world. It has taken a route next to the main needs we have as a society. All the infrastructure, mobilization, food, businesses is based on this resource. It has even reached astronomical level of finances. Behind it are innumerable interests, of which the main one is the war, because it generates a control that is exaggerated control by the United States to the main producing countries. This is why we see, since the end of the Cold War, the main sanctions are against OPEC producing countries, and they have increased a little more with the non-OPEC country group. This is the center of the controversy and world energy dispute. The stability of oil are measured by daily scandals that occur in the networks, but what they want to prove through the main TV channels. But behind that is undoubtedly energy control in the planet, and it's a great business. Oil royalty generates much earnings. 2 years ago, 24 countries, members of OPEC, and important producers that are not members, like Russia, executed this declaration of cooperation, of voluntary adjustment of crude production, known as OPEC Plus, to establish lower production quotas and rule on supply and offer that generated this long cycle of very low prices. Venezuela had a prevailing role there. I would like to ask you if OPEC has proved a true capacity of influencing in international prices. When we talk now and listen to non-OPEC countries, we owe this to Venezuelan diplomacy that 1 decade ago promoted the association of these groups. At a given time, I remember the voice of President Hugo Chavez when he said that Argentina, with Kirchner, could enter this organization. We could also say that Mexico could be becoming a member of OPEC soon. That, as Lucia has pointed out, a very important number of countries. There are 5 nations that have handled the agenda, the negotiations, agreements, exchanges, and business goals to establish a balanced and fair oil price. We are struggling against other countries that are around the other 2 markers, which are countries that adhere to these nations but do not want any kind of organization. What is their role in this controversial moment of humanity? To sabotage the stability of oil prices and flood the market with oil all the time. Mr. Trump, since he talks about the levels of reserves of America to flood the markets, and this has the objective of depressing prices. Of course, we ask ourselves if this is one of the sick comments or that sabotage the price of oil. Now, what should we do, Lucia? What Venezuela has been done, what Russia does, meetings, encounters, visits, exchanges, associations, discuss the matter of oil, energy alliance at a technical level, transfer of technology will guarantee your quotas and establish businesses with those countries. This is fruitful for our economy. So we're in the midst of this struggle, and we can say that we are in the middle of a 3rd energy world war. We are struggling against other markers, and the closest is that of OPEC and non-OPEC members. Now, how sustainable is the U.S. strategy of flooding the market through overproduction of scripts? Well, the United States have established that this technology that was discovered by Rockwater in the 40s could be an alternative. But for this, it has to flood the market prices to drop its own prices. Otherwise, it will have no competition because these hydraulic prices are very high. We could say that as the last opportunity of somebody who was drowning, because the last thing you take from a well is the last sediment, which is bedding to extract, but that will also be depleted. Now, in North America, there's oil. It's true, large amounts of oil, just that it's 13, 14, 20 kilometers underground. So where is the technology to take it out? That would be an earning above the next 20 years in oil extraction, which for the U.S. economy is not a strategy, because economically it is not profitable to reach the depth in the mother of all oil wells that are too deep inside the earth. So they play with a war, with sanctions, with NATO. They do things against other countries to destabilize them, because the war is a great business, and the United States oil corporations, Chevron and all those, are united around the bank with the main markers and stock markets. What is behind them? Boeing, the huge telecommunications and telephony corporations. And what do they use the money they have there in? Doing wars, in threatening, and of course overflying and is creating any lie against any nation of the world to create financing and finance groups. That's why we have Islamic groups, Califato, Al-Qaeda, that appear as magic, as a system of war to create unstable prices and destroy the infrastructure of the countries of OPEC. In the case of Iraq, Libya, both are a war declared against OPEC countries, and that affects us. And we have many things to say about. Thank you very much, Miguel, for your time.
Hasta pronto, hasta pronto. Bueno, el hegemón se resiste.
Dollar monopolies of oil are basic conditions to preserve their power. The first conclusion we extract from what Miguel Jaimes just declared, in view of the possibilities of a change in the rules of the game, what strategies is the United States designing? We will answer this after the last pause.
Petróleo, termómetro de la estabilidad mundial.
Thermometer of world stabilities are a critical move today. Let's see the last maneuvers of the White House to preserve its power in the international oil market, of which its hegemony largely depends. If today sustaining the U.S. empire without oil production is unthinkable, or at least strict control of prices, is not only economic but geopolitical. The military control of all zones of oil producing areas is a matter of power. This is why OPEC is always confronting Washington attacks through Donald Trump's Twitter account, but perhaps more dangerously yet from U.S. Congress, and the possibility of Trump supporting a law that would catalog OPEC as a cartel would have millionaire consequences for these producers. This bill was presented in May, and its first obstacle took place when the member of the House of Representatives sent it back. Of course, the idea is manipulate the energy market and ask millions of dollars in damages. U.S. congressmen are analyzing this bill that proposes to subject OPEC to the anti-monopoly law Sherman. The Saudi control their production as a state monopoly, and to freeze their pumping, they demand commitments from Iran, the rival that came back to the market after years of economic sanctions. In spite of the impasse between members and non-members of OPEC, prices will tend to improve in the third or fourth quarter of the year. This prognosis is based on the fact that the world production will be less, especially in China, when oil prices also mean a millionaire loss for Saudi Arabia. The Arab Kingdom is not willing to drop production. We have in our study David Paravicina, expert in public energy policies, University Venezuelan professor. Taking one of the points we presented is this pretension of the U.S. Congress and some U.S. political forces of passing a bill to satanize OPEC. What results would that have? That is part of repetitive conduct of the United States as an empire, legislating outside of its territory. Apply legislation outside of the United States. In fact, they are legislating against Venezuela, Iran, Russia, China. So this is a conduct that is opposite to diplomacy, going to war and commercial war mechanisms in this case, and not diplomacy. Now, this is natural in other areas, in the political area, for example. For example, legislation against Cuba, the Helms-Burton Act, that was also enforced with sanctions to any country who had relations with Cuba. And now it's being enforced in the political area, but in the economic area regarding the oil, it has a special characteristic, because oil, from its exploitation in the 19th century, became a monopolic exploitation area. Since the 19th century, the Standard Oil had 80–90% of the oil production in the United States, and developed an international battle with other producing companies, Shell, Robel, 3 international companies. In this way, they deformed the prices of oil on a permanent basis, because they are not fixed by supply and demand, but by political power. Given the nature of oil and its very early dominion by political factors, are marked by that. For more than 40 years, oil prices were set by the Group of Seven Sisters. Until 1974, we had a great world energy crisis, and the United States decided to change the way of fixing prices towards high prices in order to finance new ways to access the economy or develop critical economies. Due to political reasons, the defeat in Vietnam, but also economic reasons, and a fundamental change took place. I think that now we are living a similar situation in the world. Not only the United States, well, the United States, the crisis, energy crisis, is not as strong as in Europe or France, but especially with the Yellow Vests. The factor that made them protest, if we see the origin, is that the French president decided to place a quota to have regarding the climate factor. Other companies, Shell, for example, are promoting self-taxes for carbon emissions to attain the resources for the demand of a new energy system. OPEC at this time plays a fundamental role, and what they're discussing is the speculation rates, an environmental crisis that cannot be denied, and the conflicts with oil-producing exporting countries that in this situation see an advantage in these conflicts. The great consumer countries, not only the United States, Europe, Japan, where economies are not elastic salary-wise. They're practically frozen, and fuel price variations turn into serious political problems, as we're looking at now in Europe, and we will surely see in the United States. The topic in the United States is that Trump himself has to struggle 2 lines. One, trying to maximize earnings of the companies, and another one, which means high oil prices, and on the other one, respond to the demands of 100% of the population that consumes oil and are against high prices. It would create a huge political conflict. And so, in my opinion, we are on the edge of change of energy system. It's not that we're going to leave oil aside. It will still last many years, but it is related with a change of share in the world oil market. Renewable energies. Well, renewable energies is an alternative. And by the way, China is leading with 40% of renewable energies that come from China. However, their weight in the global energy market is still small. Electric generation from thermoelectric generation still is large majority between carbon and oil is 70-80%, and that will not change for a time. It's the relation between production and market control relations in the world that determines these conflicts. The capital accumulation rates of the great multinationals that are looking at new ways of distribution of the European oil and gas market. It is clear now that the behavior of international oil prices are not exclusively dependent on offer and supply, and that there are geopolitical, geoeconomic factors that influence directly there. You explained us the national situation of the United States and some other countries like France, but looking at the international arena, the geopolitical battles that are taking place, which ones have more power in terms of influencing price variation? I think that Russia's weight and Saudi Arabia's weight is essential. First, because they are the main oil producers in the world. The third is the United States. It's a sustained declination situation. The United States is basing its production increase in the declination of definite assets, the mother rocks. And it's a decision that will have a consequence in a short time. In 10 years, consequences will be seen. But Saudi Arabia not only has reserves, but production, around 20% of the total world production. Regarding exports, there's also a higher percentage. Therefore, the United States, or Mr. Trump, has to, in the double role he plays, to try to guarantee incremental earning income rates of oil, but also satisfy the demand of the U.S. people at stable prices of gas. They have to negotiate, they have political and strategic goals, in the case of Saudi Arabia that wants to be strategic in the Middle East and win over Iran. And Russia, on the other hand, that also aspires the European energy market, especially with gas, to assure the gas with China. So, if you tell me the place where policy price-setting discussions, it is there. The pressure of Russia on Europe and Europe that has no answer from the United States with energy. In Europe, it's guaranteed by primary and secondary sources in Russia. There's another place. So now what does OPEC's role play? It has an indirect pressure on prices. OPEC was formed by almost underdeveloped countries that just came out of colonial periods, they incorporated in the oil world to seek reasonable prices. As I explained, Pérez Alfonso and El Tarique, and the achievements and consequences they attained. Although situations really shameful have happened, like that countries that change from producing to consumer. And this has been a constant practice in the history of OPEC since the 70s when it was founded. But reality is more stubborn than any other thing, and Saudi Arabia tries to take advantage from any situation. Well, this is a more political reality there in Venezuela. The knowledge and wisdom of because of such conflictive policies, and this is why I send a vote of wisdom, and Venezuela expressed its historic experience in oil, and that's why it is assuming the presidency of OPEC in 2019. Thank you very much, Professor. You have contributed a lot. We will now go to our conclusions. It's easy to prove that the behavior of oil prices do not exclusively depend on the market, supply and demand. Other speculative factors, geopolitical interests, eagerness of territorial control, and world leadership are others. Today, Donald Trump, with its war policy, through the fracking practice, threatens to end a balance reached after a consensus never seen in the world history. But he has to play in double line now. The last key factor, not less important, is the increase of gasoline prices, of course, influenced in a war of expectations that is nothing casual. And OPEC, with its prestige, has much to say in the search for reasonable prices. Thank you for being here. We end our critical move today. Thank you for listening to us.